Hello VC, Big Star 1000 with a Gimme Ten, which I am doing essentially for my own amusement. It's something that that's an idea that I had for a while, to join the dots between, you know, the mid-eighties pop soul singers to sort of trip hop. It's how in fact there is in essence a direct linkage between certain sounds and how it resulted to things like Massive Attack, for example. You don't have to agree with me, you don't have to agree with my take. It's just, I'm just doing it for the hell of it, because I thought it's something that I had in my head for a while. And as I'm doing the UK, well, I did 3 UK jazz. We have now a UK soul, a British soul. To me, this is very heavily linked with my own childhood. Because I want to start in 1984, 85, and in 84, I would have been like 8, 9 years old. Yeah, 8 years old, and I can distinctly remember on the radio. Distinctly remember the voice of Sade on the radio. And my first entry to Gimme Ten is actually 2 albums. This one came out in 84. I'll take them out of the sleeves because it's very shiny. So this is the uber classic debut by Sade, Diamond Life, which I believe is an album that should be in everyone's collection. A, it's cheap, and B, it is phenomenal. And what we've got here is this kind of mix of sophisticated pop soul, and at first it appears very sort of like overproduced and sleek, but I think what gets me here is that the songwriting is world class, is second to none. The first 3 songs are, you could argue the 3 best opening songs of any album I can think of, like Smooth Operator, You Love Is King, Hang On To Your Love. But then there's, like the rest of the album is fantastic too. I think Hang On To Your Love is one of my all-time favorite songs, with this sort of Billie Jean-esque drum intro. Amazing. And I remember being like, 8 years old or something, and I remember distinctly in the recesses of my memory hearing the chorus of Smooth Operator, Coast to Coast, LA to Chicago. That is printed on my brain, and I don't know, maybe my love for soul and funk and these things just is, when you think back on what you heard and what you enjoyed hearing, the sounds you enjoyed hearing as a youngster, they make an impression on you in later life. So this album, to me, is the seeds of the sound that I'm talking about. It's got this kind of British melancholy, which is distinctly British. No one else could make that kind of music. Sade Adu obviously was of Nigerian background, but the band is obviously, she was bred in Britain, and the band is so tight. I think this album does something, goes a little further in the sense that, this kind of sense of melancholy is taken, deeper on this. Even the sleeve has got this kind of, blue hue of, Jezebel, The Sweetest Taboo. The Sweetest Taboo for me is like Sade 101. So these 2 albums came out in 84 and 85, and I think they're essentials, and they're my starting point. A little bit later, 1989, I want to talk about this record here. I think I've never ever shown a Simply Red record on the VC, partly because I don't listen to it very often. These are not albums I listen to very often, but they're nostalgic albums for me. Not because I owned this album when I was, 1989, I was, like 12 years old or something. But I have a very distinct memory of If You Don't Know Me by Now. If you don't know me by now, I can't talk. Yeah, excuse me. Which is to me like one of these kind of unmissable songs from the 80s from Britain. Mick Hucknall obviously is from Manchester, and he's the prime exponent of what I would call blue-eye soul of that time. And love him or hate him, he made some amazing records with some Simply Red, and the songs, which are again etched in my memory, like Money's Too Tight to Mention, or later on Stars. I was arming and ahhing, including Stars in this list, because I remember in the early 90s Stars being on the radio everywhere, and so. But this song here, If You Don't Know Me By Now, is completely, to me, the essence of British soul as well, like Sade is. And then, same year, 1989, because all this is chronological. I just want to tell you this. It's like in the order they appeared. Is this, and now we're getting into the sound that I'm talking about. We're really joining the dots. Between Sade, Soul to Soul, there's only a little step. It's not a big step. I'd say this is more funky than Sade. Sade is more melancholic. This is more funky. Obviously, Soul to Soul, Club Classics, Volume 1. An absolute essential record in the sort of, like in a record collection, it's an essential record. Back to Life, Keep on Moving. Although the version of Back to Life that was released as a single was much more sort of funky than the one that's on the album. This happens to be, I think, a brown. Yes, it's brownish, brown-orange record. Karen Wheeler was the singer of Soul to Soul. I think they're hailed from London, from memory. And they really revolutionized that sound of, funky British soul, and really, kind of early acid jazz as well. You've got this kind of very funky backbeat. And also there is a definite house music sound in there, like American house music. 808 kind of sound in there. The next album is not from a British singer, because we all know that Neneh Cherry is from Sweden, but this is a through and through British record. The production, the musicians, the fact that Nelly Hooper had a big hand on this. It's produced by Booger Bear, who is Neneh Cherry's husband, is or was, I don't know. And the music you get in there, like Man Child or Buffalo Stance, because you've got also members from Massive Attack playing on this, you've already got a link there, which is very strong and very sort of very seminal in a sense. I think this album is a great record. I don't play it enough. Every time I play it, I think to myself, she's never done anything better. So the album's called Raw Like Sushi, by the way, in case you don't know, it's not written anywhere. And came out in 1989 on, what label was it on? Circa Records. Sort of, again, the link between Sade to Massive Attack is in there somewhere. Robert Del Naja, 3D, sings on this as well. Great. Then is an album which again bridges Sade with acid jazz, neo soul, acid jazz kind of little known record. Mickey Paris. Mickey Paris is a singer from London. She was born, I think, in Islington in London. And this is a second album called Contribution. And this album was released in 1990. So Neneh Cherry was 89, this is from 1990. And it features a single called If I Love You Tonight, which is a Prince song that she recorded in Paisley Park Studios. But this album really is a bridge between acid jazz, neo soul. You know, it sort of merges that sound, that early Sade sound, with some more beat-oriented music. I really love this. This is a really great record, and you know, I mean, obviously I've got this on CD because, well, it's the 90s, eh? They didn't make many records anymore, but it's really worth seeking out. It's a beautiful record. Then in 1991, if you were alive at that time, who can forget this? And I don't have the album, actually. I don't have the album it comes from, but I've got this and I've got the best of. I'll just show them together. And I mean, Crazy is a song that, I mean, I remember being, well, in 1991, I was, about 13, 14 years old or whatever. I remember this clear as day, you know, it just had a big impact on me because it was such a catchy song, and I can actually picture the video clip in my head. It was like on repeat. And much later in life, so I bought this probably a few years ago. I bought it back because it's, you know, this kind of nostalgic music, sometimes it makes you feel good, you know, you put it on and, you know, it just activates something in your brain. And I remember also this song called Killer, which is on this. Killer is probably the better of the two songs. It's this amazing, the drums on it and the bass on it is one of the best intro I can think of. Go and check out Killer by Seal. Killer, like, and it really is killer. It's absolutely killer. I mean, again, you know, British Soul 101, you know, fantastic song, fantastic songwriter. And maybe you might watch this and you might think, Big Star, you've lost the plot. You're talking about Simply Red, you're talking about Seal. But I love those records. I have no shame at all in saying this. I really, really love those Seal records. I really love Crazy, Killer. I'm less fond of Kiss from a Rose, but you know. And so it takes us to we're in 1991. It takes us to this, and this here is British Soul as well. And some might say, oh, it's trip hop. And what is trip hop? You know, define the term trip hop. You know, so in trip hop you got hip hop, obviously, and you definitely have hip hop in there. You know, 3D and Tricky. And Mushroom, they all rap on this, obviously, but the songs, like Unfinished Sympathy is a soul song, like down to a T. It's like a soul song, you know, with different arrangement, but it's a soul song. Save From Harm is soul, you know. Be Thankful for What You Got is soul. Daydreaming is soul, you know. Like you've got this kind of like mix between 50% of hip hop, 50% of soul. To me, this is a soul record. Made in Bristol by the Wild Bunch. This is one of my 10 favorite records ever. And it was, probably will always be one of my top 10 favorite records. I will always slip this in there. It's an album that, you know, at times I've listened to at least once a week. Not recently, but you know, there was a period of my life, probably a good 5 years, where I listened to this album once a week. It's just perfect. It's perfection. And people always bang on about Mezzanine. Mezzanine is a great record. But to me, this is the essence of Massive Attack. It's where it began, and very very, very, very impressive record. So that's 91. Now, 1993 is an obscurity because you have to have something that's a bit less known in this list. Sarah Winton. You Can't Keep a Good Woman Down is the name of the album, and it was released on a label called Sounds of Money. There's not much, I know nothing about Sarah Winton, I'll just say it, I know nothing about her. What you've got there is again this acid jazz meets neo soul meets sort of a little bit housey sound. It's a fantastic record. Yeah, it's in the Sade mold, the Mickey Paris Sade mold, and it's a direct lineage from that. You know, I don't know what to say. It's a brilliant record. I don't think it's easy to get, and I don't think there's very many of them made, but it's a beautiful, beautiful record. Okay, another. It's a semi-guilty pleasure. I mean, you know, it's not a record that I pull out very often, but I bought this when it came out in 1993. So this one was from 93 and this one too. And it's the first album by Jamiroquai. At the time I had it on cassette in 93. I remember walking into my local music store in my hometown in France, and I only bought this based on the cover. It was a cassette, and I thought the name Jamiroquai just sounded kind of exotic to me, and this I just found it appealing. Took it home, and it starts with When You're Gonna Learn, which is amazing. It's an amazing song. You know, it's got this kind of Stevie Wonder groove, and even his vocals are very reminiscent of Stevie Wonder, and you get hooked. And then you've got Too Young to Die, which is, you know, and then you've got stuff like the title track, Emergency on Planet Earth, Blow Your Mind, which is amazing. This is a great British acid jazz soul record, like it's kind of like a British Stevie Wonder record. And then Jamiroquai made other records which were more commercial, more, you know, like obviously he hit the big time, and you know. And then he became a bit of a twat, really, you know, buying, you know, like Ferraris and Lotus and whatever cars, and ending up in the papers for the wrong reasons. But this here, if you just made this one record, it's like if you stopped there, this would be held as like a classic of the style, because it's a great record. It really is. And finally, I end up with one of my, again. If Blue Line's in my top 10 all-time favorite records, so is this one, and this one even more so in so many ways. So to me, this is the quintessence of British soul in the 90s. I mean, really, in every possible way. 1994, this is a soul record through and through. You know, I don't care what anybody says. People say, oh no, it's strip up, it's strip. No, it's a soul record. You listen to Beth Gibbons. She's a soul singer. She's one of the best soul singers that ever graced the planet. She has this voice which just takes you in completely, you know, absorbs you with her intensity. There's not a bad song on this. The samples are to die for. The arrangements are brilliant. I mean, Adrian Utley's guitar is so classy. Jeff Barrow, obviously, you know, is a wizard. And if you don't know the story, reports said they met, Beth Gibbons and Jeff Barrow met at a unemployment scheme thing and sort of hit it off. But I mean, to make music like this is a true vision of, you know, it's you know, it's like a you know, a gift from God, you know, like this kind of ability to make this soulful, mournful, melodic, and sometimes very upbeat music, but sort of with this retaining this British melancholy. Yeah, I mean, Dummy is a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece in every possible way. It's a nice way to finish. I was just going to talk about everything but the girl as well, maybe, and other bands like that, but those 10 sort of sum up my kind of, joining the dots from Sade to Portishead. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, doesn't matter. It didn't cost you anything. It cost me time and thoughts, but it was a worthy idea for a Gimme Ten, I think. Okay, leave me some comments, and see you soon. Cheers, VC.